Today on Hearts of Heroes, a bridge collapses and sends people inside their cars crashing into a deep ravine.
I was astounded by what I was seeing.
You're in a state of disbelief. You just can't believe that something like that could even happen.
John and his colleagues got down there and knew what they needed to do.
Plus,
it's one of the top 3 hottest fires I've ever been in.
A house fire endangers the life of a helpless family member.
And I said, we have a cat in the house.
He's our little baby. Well, he's one of the family.
These heroes pull together to prove that the whole truly is greater than the sum of the parts.
There's a saying among first responders, we'll risk a lot to save a lot. So you can be sure that those brave men and women will do whatever it takes to get the job done.
When a bridge collapsed in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, one off-duty paramedic came up with a daring plan to save those trapped in the gorge below.
When I woke up, I had some text messages on my phone. There's a bridge collapse.
I'm thinking a mass casualty incident.
A bus down at the bottom, several cars. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing in my city. I couldn't believe that anyone was able to get out of there alive.
Throughout the 18 and 1900s, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania was known for its booming steel industry. Today, it's a city where the past meets the future.
Now we're known for education and technology, so we've sort of shifted.
But anywhere you look, walk, or drive, Pittsburgh's past is in full view.
We do have over 450 bridges. We are the city of bridges.
We have 3 major rivers that run through the city, and then there's a lot of hills and valleys that create the need to have bridges that span some of those valleys.
However, like any man-made structure, they can eventually weaken and deteriorate.
The freeze and thaw cycles definitely have an impact on bridges. Exposure to the elements can have an effect on the structural stability of roadways and bridges.
The city of Pittsburgh would come face to face with this situation one snowy morning in 2022.
January 28th, 2022 was a cold, wintry morning in the city. It was a school day. The school buses were on a 2-hour delay because of the weather. President Biden happened to be in town for an infrastructure announcement, ironically. So there was a lot going on that day.
I was on my way out the door to go to work. I got a text message from my boss, and he says, hey, did you hear this call? The bridge collapsed. This was a major collapse, and there were vehicles involved, and that shifted everything into a higher gear.
I was off duty. I woke up. I had some text messages on my phone. I hear that there's a bridge collapse, and I put my uniform on, and I hopped in my truck, this truck here that I'm sitting on, and got there as quickly as I could from my house.
The bridge is the Fern Hollow Bridge. It is a major bridge that is used to travel between a couple different neighborhoods in the city. When I arrived on scene, I assumed command along with representatives from our police department and our EMS department.
There was the bus at the bottom, there were several cars, and I couldn't believe that anyone was alive.
There was just this huge hole there where there used to be this bridge. There were big sections of bridge that were down here on the hillside, and then other sections that had fallen all the way down to the very bottom, all the way across, and then up the hillside to the other end.
The first responders on site assessed that there were 10 people who had fallen to the bottom of the ravine.
You're used to seeing a roadway there, and now it's nothing. It's just this giant gaping hole.
I'm thinking a mass casualty incident, how we're going to manage this, who's on duty, where can we find more resources if needed. There's a list of things that were going on. I was juggling chainsaws.
Adding to the terror, another potentially deadly hazard.
When the bridge went down, it took a 12-inch gas line with it. So you hear this sound like a jet engine, and that's the gas escaping, and you can smell the natural gas.
It doesn't take a whole lot to trigger a natural gas explosion. We just had to get down there and get those people out.
Coming up, with lives on the line, rescuers would have to act quickly.
We had to get these victims out of there. You just didn't have time to wait.
And later, a house fire leaves a couple watching helplessly outside.
My heart sank. I didn't know what the situation was, and my cat was at home. And it was rough.
But first, a tip to keep you safe on the roads this winter.
Driving during winter storms can be intimidating, but there are a few things you can do to help keep yourself safe on icy roads.
Keeping simple items in your car like an emergency roadside kit, extra blankets, and a shovel can help should you find yourself stranded, broken down, or lost.
And remember, when it comes to winter storms, only leave the house if absolutely necessary.
On the morning of January 28, 2022, a 4-lane commuter bridge suddenly collapsed in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Forbes Avenue is a major artery here in the city. It's a heavily traveled bridge.
The disaster sent 10 drivers crashing into a ravine below.
You're in a state of disbelief. You just can't believe that something like that could even happen. And here it is right in front of you, and now you've got to do something about it.
Making matters worse, a foot-wide gas line running alongside the bridge was severed and spewing dangerous fumes.
We had to get these victims out of there. They're injured, it's cold. You just didn't have time to wait for the gas company to come in and get the gas shut off. So just kind of had to do what we had to do.
EMS and some firefighters reached down using a human chain to help those people who were ambulatory and trying to climb up out of the ravine.
A human chain is essentially locking arms with one person, then another, and so on. The goal is to do this until you can reach the victim.
Their human chain pulled 7 victims to safety, but 3 of them sustained injuries so severe that they couldn't be moved. They would require an emergency extraction from below.
We had one 4-wheel drive vehicle that was assigned to my emergency management planner, and that wasn't going to be enough.
When I was standing there sort of at the edge, kind of taking in the whole scene, I was hearing some radio chatter about could the medic unit even make it down to get to the patient and then get back out. The light went off in my head. I've got this pickup truck. Our assistant chief was running the show down in the ravine. I called him on the radio and said, I have my pickup truck. Do you want me to try to come down there? And he said, yeah.
And we deployed both of those vehicles into the ravine to assist with extrication of the people that were there.
I went up this way, went up Dallas Avenue, back to the backside of this where there's an entrance gate that can access the trails. The park ranger had to open up the gate, which led us into the trail.
But these foot trails were designed for hikers, not pickup trucks.
They're kind of narrow and windy and steep and covered in snow. We went really slow to make sure that we don't end up rolling over a hillside. Got a couple patients down there, but can't get anybody down because of the access issues. So we got myself and a public works pickup truck to go down and get some of these people out. There were some down trees and logs and stuff that we had to navigate, so it was definitely treacherous.
Luckily, paramedic Atkinson was an experienced off-road driver. His expertise was crucial as he traversed these icy, dangerous trails.
The depth of the ravine was about 200 to 250 feet. John and his colleagues didn't waste a second, got down there and knew what they needed to do and did it.
They had one patient in a rescue basket already packaged up, ready to go. Myself and a couple other paramedics picked her up in the Stokes basket and loaded her into the back of my pickup truck here.
Up above the ravine, Chief Daryl Jones was dealing with the busted gas line.
Eventually, the gas company came and shut off the main valve.
Meanwhile, paramedic Atkinson began carefully transporting a victim back up the trail.
I took a very, very, very cautious drive back up the way that we came. It was a little bit treacherous, but again, I took my time and was extra cautious because I had precious cargo on board and made it out of the park.
They knew there was a gas leak and they knew there were potential dangers, but they did it anyway.
I coordinated having 2 ambulances meet us at the gate where we would have somebody to hand her off to that could get her to the hospital.
Within hours, all the people were rescued and all eventually recovered thanks to the heroic efforts of these first responders.
It's a big sigh. We achieved what we came here to do, and nobody got hurt. It was a successful operation all the way around.
The most amazing thing about first responders is that they don't really ever talk to you about how hard it was for them or how bad it was for them. They just do.
We are first responders. That's what we do. See a problem, we solve a problem. And that's what he did that day, so kudos to him for his efforts.
Coming up,
we had fire venting out the second floor.
It's one of the top 3 hottest fires I've ever been in.
And I said, we have a cat in the house.
but first, another safety tip to keep drivers safe in the snow.
Each year, winter storms strand countless drivers. But there are some things you can do to stay safe if you get stuck inside your vehicle.
First, make sure there's no snow blocking your exhaust. Then run your vehicle for 10 minutes every hour with the heat on high. This can help keep you from developing frostbite or hypothermia.
And remember to keep your hazard lights on and stay calm until help arrives. One of the definitions of a hero is somebody who's admired for their courage, achievement, and noble qualities. You can certainly put our dedicated teachers into that category.
And when two college instructors' home was devastated by a house fire, their community showed up to lend their support for this couple who had given so much for their students and their school.
I heard the call come in, and I started activating the crews to get them en route.
There was smoke and flames coming out of the house, so we immediately knew that this was the real deal.
We had to actually go up the steps, so we got into the, what we call thermal layer, or the smoke.
It's one of the top 3 hottest fires I've ever been in.
And I said, we have a cat in the house. I don't care about the house, just get the cat out.
Highland Township is a small suburb, just 45 miles outside Detroit.
You got a mixed bag of people here. You can drive 5 miles up the road and you're gonna hit a farm. Then you can drive another 2 miles and you're gonna find beautiful homes in the $1 million range.
We do have a ton of universities, MSU, U of M, Lawrence Tech, Wayne State, you name them.
Sue Boyd and her husband Dan both teach television broadcasting at Madonna University.
And action.
We do multi-camera studio production. We also do single camera production, all the way to large format film production sets.
Okay, now play. We always say our students come first, and they do.
I love the students. I just can't believe they come in here as young adults and they leave different people.
It's a big family, and they definitely treat us as their family.
I call them my kids. They call me Mama Boyd. The program is very unique because we're very hands-on. We do a real live broadcast TV show that is seen every week on TV 20 Detroit.
Ready to? Take 2.
In fact, Sheldon Yellen from our sponsor Belfour Property Restoration was a guest on their show.
I was raised here in Detroit, and my mom raised 4 boys alone. She encouraged us to lay down on that pillow at night and dream, and if you see it, you can be it.
He worked so well with the students, and I just loved having him on.
It was a great experience for us, and we did say on our way out, we'll be back one day.
No one realized at the time how true those words would be. In May of 2021, Sue and Dan were at work, unaware that 45 miles away, a faulty plug had caused their home to catch fire.
As we took the corner to get to the house, you could see smoke and flames blowing out the windows. It was hot and there was heavy flames, so we immediately knew that this was the real deal.
Firefighters entered the inferno and climbed the flaming stairway toward the bedroom, the origin of the fire.
We get to the top of the landing, and it was, I'm gonna say it's one of the top 3 hottest fires I've ever been in.
The only thing you can see is the orange glow as the flames flicker through the smoke.
At the university, Sue Boyd received a terrifying call from the fire marshal.
He goes, we're at your house right now, and there's a fire. And I said, we have a cat in the house. I called Dan right away, and I said, Dan, our house is on fire.
My heart sank. I didn't know what the situation was, and my cat was at home. And it was rough. We got on the road, but it's almost an hour drive.
Meanwhile, firefighters Becker and Korpanik were battling the blaze.
You can see that the room on the far right was fully engulfed in flames. I couldn't see Mike, and he was right in front of me.
You could see a lot of orange, the actual flames coming through the bedroom.
Mike was spraying, putting out the fire. We didn't know it, but at one of the walls, there was an electrical outlet that was exposed.
So we're spraying the outlet. The outlet actually flashed on us because the water reacted with electricity.
At that point, Mike yelled, "Holy cow, tell them to kill the power, kill the power."
Coming up, Sue and Dan wait anxiously for information about their beloved cat, Pippin.
He's our little baby. He's one of the family.
In May of 2021, Sue and Dan Boyd's house had gone up in flames. They had no choice but to wait outside, not knowing the fate of their home and their cat Pippin.
He's a three-legged cat, and he's a tough cat. He's our little baby. He's one of the family.
With the power lines cut, firefighters were finally able to get a handle on the blaze.
When we came out, we found out that there was a cat in the house, and frankly, I had not seen the cat at this time.
My fire marshal went into the house. He started calling the cat's name. He found the area that the cat was in.
Then, through the dense smoke, Pippin's head popped up.
He came running out. "The cat's alive! The cat's alive! You're okay!"
But Pippin was terrified and wouldn't move, so Dan was escorted into the house.
And I called him, and then suddenly his head popped up. And he started meowing, so I went over and I grabbed him, I threw him in the cage, and ran out to tell Sue he was safe.
The Boyds were overjoyed that their cat had survived, but they now realized they'd lost almost everything else.
The whole upstairs was a total loss. The attic was a total loss. Downstairs was a total loss because of the smoke.
Our sponsor, Belfour Property Restoration, immediately went to work.
When this particular house, there really wasn't much salvageable.
First thing you do, you send a crew in and remove all flooring, all walls, ceilings, just get the whole house right down to bare studs. And then you just start building it as if it was a new home.
Despite the fact that their home and life was in shambles, the day after the fire, Sue and Dan were back at teaching.
We were here the next day after the fire. I have a responsibility to my students.
We know what Sue and Dan went through, but we also know that they've always been here for us and that they continue to be here for us.
These kids lift me up every day.
11 months after the fire, Sue, Dan, and their cat Pippin moved back into their newly renovated home.
To finally be home, finally have a bed that was mine again, to have the same view that we always had, it was finally home. It's a warm, fuzzy feeling, you know?
Our house is just amazing now.
In 2021, when Sheldon was interviewed at Madonna University, he said that one day they would be back. And on this day, he's keeping that promise.
There was conversation about the need for an anchor desk, a news desk, and we realized then that we had to get one made for them. That's why we're here today.
Whenever you're ready.
Oh, well, we're sorry to interrupt. Hey, Dan, Sue, come on in, bring everybody in.
Hey, good to see
All
you.
the students, come on in, gather around here a minute. Sue, Dan, we were here a while ago filming for an interview. We thought about what could we give you? And then it all of a sudden occurred to us that the best thing we could do for Sue and Dan is to do what you guys do all day, every day, is give something to the university, to the students, now and forever. Guys, bring it in. On behalf of all of us, and to all the students here at Madonna University, your new desk, your interview, your news desk.
It's
Here it
amazing.
is.
Thank you so much. Wow. That is beautiful. The set is just fabulous. We always wanted an acrylic top, but this stuff is so expensive.
That was extra.
I figured.
Everyone was a hero in our story. I couldn't have asked for anything more from every single person, from the firefighters, my students. Everybody is a hero in my eyes in this story.
When there's a crisis, we know we can always depend on the heroic efforts of first responders. But often, it is the efforts of everyday people that actually make a huge impact on our lives.
So if you see a first responder, tell them thank you for all they do. And while you're at it, thank a teacher as well. We'll see you next time.